This changes everything for the Vikings, with a pair of analysts recently praising a core unit in Minnesota that hasn't looked this good in over a decade, leaving Kwesi Co along with fans immensely excited for this season ahead. We're going to break down all that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all Vikings updates as we get closer and closer to the start of preseason. And with that, I'll hop straight into it, which is that PFF praises the Vikings. So we know that the Vikings made a point to go out and load up their offensive line this offseason, signing former Colts standouts Will Fries and Ryan Kelly in free agency, and then used their first-round pick on Ohio State's Donovan Jackson to complete the overhauled interior trio. Pairing with outstanding tackles in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, it's a line that has a chance to be very good if everyone is healthy. And according to PFF, they are a top 7 unit, ranking in at number 7. If you guys want to go and check out the episode, I'll link it down below. But I made up this little graphic here so you can see all the teams kind of compiled in a simple list here. Minnesota clocking in at number 7, like I was saying, amongst teams that are in the top 6 or 8. Being the Atlanta Falcons, Tampa Bay, the Colts, the Bears, the Bills, the Broncos, and of course the Philadelphia Eagles, being the defending champs. So you see how some teams with some precedent of winning with a great offensive line and having established chemistry with those offensive lines ranked a bit higher, because Minnesota, we haven't seen these guys play yet for the new addition of the Minnesota Vikings offensive line. And Trevor Sakema was saying that he truly believes that the Vikings could be the best offensive line in the NFL. This unit is fantastic. I think this offensive line is experienced, it's athletic, and they can run the exact type of run blocking scheme that Kevin O'Connell wants to in Minnesota. To me, this is one of the most talented offensive lines in the NFL. I think that if these guys are fully healthy as a unit for a season, they are going to be multiple statistics where they are ranked number 1. I think this unit is that good. And there were many categories last season where the Vikings defense ranked number 1 in a lot of categories, but not a lot of people were talking about our defense as the most feared defense in the league. And now with Minnesota having a revamped offensive line who hasn't yet played together, and yes, is coming off a lot of injuries, as part of why they landed where they landed, because you have Will Fries and Christian Darrisaw, coming off of some pretty big injuries. So that's where it's a big concern for Minnesota, and that's why they rank so low, because you don't know what these guys are going to be like, how many games they're going to play this season, if they're going to start the season or they're going to be the cautious route and kind of wait to ease them in there. With Minnesota, after that Rams game, they made a commitment to fans saying, hey, we needed to fix the offensive line. And they went out and they absolutely did that. Day 1 of free agency, they were just balling out and backing up the Brinks trucks for offensive linemen. And then we saw them do that in the draft as well, going up and reaching for Donovan Jackson, which is hopefully going to pay dividends as being one of the next future stars of this offensive line, in the same way that Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill were, since they've been drafted by Minnesota. And then you have Wasserman chiming in here saying that I think placing them at 7 instead of in the top 5 really just speaks to Christian Darrisaw and Will Fries needing them to come back fully healthy, and that is obviously a big concern. It was a very nasty injury that they both suffered last year, and then by the end of the year, or maybe even by the end of September, if these guys are healthy, we could look at this as solidly as a top 5 unit. I think that's the only thing that holds it back, is the health of those two guys. So yeah, it's going to be a big thing to watch heading into the regular season. And if you guys missed our episode where we covered the Darrisaw update, where it's a bit of a rosy expectation of him playing week 1, I'll link it at the end of this video. You guys can click it and check that out. But we know that Minnesota isn't overly concerned if guys aren't ready to go to start the year. They're more concerned about guys playing in the middle of the year and the end of the year, so we don't have to be scrambling at the end of the year or while trade deadline passes and we can't make any of those moves. If we don't have some guys ready week 1, at least that gives us some freedom kind of to go out and get a free agent, put a guy on IR, or just go out and make a trade before the trade deadline, and just to revamp this team even more so. We have a little bit of cap space left. They had $23.5 million. They could have went out and signed some other guys, maybe combine them if they had known how much they was going to spend in the offseason, but they want to make sure that, hey, we want to have some cash going into the regular season in case there's some injuries or we have to make a signing, make a trade. We want to be able that we want to make sure we have the cap space to be able to take on whatever circumstance can come our way within one season. And $23.5 million, that gives you a lot of leniency for a 1-year contract on a player, or 2 if they need to go that route, if there's injuries or whatnot, suspensions, anything like that. Minnesota is ready for any possible outcome. And on paper, it's not too difficult to imagine the Vikings having a pretty dominant front 5. Darrisaw is a good left tackle, as there is in the league when he is healthy, probably top 3, and he's not number 3 O'Neal is the model of consistency on the other side. So is Kelly, who is a 4-time Pro Bowler. Fries was playing at a very high level early last season before he got hurt. And Jackson looks ready to be an effective day one starter. The day one starter for Donovan Jackson, I absolutely love. That's what you want to see out of your first round draft pick, just being ready to be plugged into the lineup as a starter, ready to go. We saw Dallas Turner, they kind of wanted to integrate him a little bit by bit. He was also a victim of just a very loaded depth chart at outside linebacker, and they kind of had to find a way to dance him in there, and now he has a more concrete role heading into this season. But Brian Flores likes to go with that 3 linebacker set that gives him a lot more opportunities, especially with Pat Jones just kind of taking a back seat. And then you also have on the other side of it where Donovan Jackson, he's going into a situation, the only guy he's competing against is Blake Brandel. Blake Brandel, he's solid, but he's not going to be that difference maker. When you look at the best offensive lines in the NFL where Minnesota was ranked, you look at those rankings, you look at Philly, you look at Denver, you look at Buffalo, even Chicago. I hate to say it, but that offensive line is looking a bit scary. And then Indy and Tampa Bay, they've always had very consistent offensive lines, especially because Tristan Wirfs is there, and he is an absolute monster. But Minnesota, when fully healthy, on paper, like the article was saying, like we've been saying, this offensive line and this team in general is looking the best that they have looked since 2009, since that one year that Brett Favre was there and we got to the NFC Championship and we were a victim of Bountygate and Brett Favre trying to be a hero with that interception. And now we are where we are now. We're with a lot of heartbreak later, but now the tide is turning where we see a revamped offensive line that looks the strongest that it's been in a long time. Our skill positions, they've been set for the past couple of years. It's just been a matter of finding the right quarterback to get them the ball and the right protection for them. We got JJ McCarthy, and we got him fully protected if this offensive line is fully healthy, with the best receiving core in the NFL. If you look at it all around with players to throw to, whether it's a wide receiver, tight end, or running back, I don't think anybody has a arsenal of weapons to play with like JJ McCarthy has. In this offensive line, they can get him a lot of time just in pass protection so he can get the ball to them. And as well for this 2-back set that we're going to have with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, this offensive line with that run blocking is going to be very awesome to watch. I can't wait for the start of preseason just to see how this offensive lineup is going to shake down. I know we kind of have an idea of how it's going to shake down with Donovan Jackson being the starter over Blake Brandel, but there could be some interesting storylines that develop over those 3 weeks. Who knows? But you guys won't want to miss a single beat of it because we're getting very close to the start of the official training camp and of the preseason. So stay tuned for all the updates. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of the episodes when they drop. But let us know down in the comments what you guys thought about PFF's ranking of the offensive lines. Where do you think Minnesota was a bit snubbed on the list? Do you think they should have been higher, or do you think they fit right where they should have been? Are there others? There's also some teams on here that you're surprised even made the list as the positions that they were at, or do you think that Minnesota is going to just prove a lot of people wrong? And this is going to look very interesting by mid-season or by the end of the year, where Minnesota jumps up into the top 5, potentially even the top 3. And I'm not talking about number 3. I think Minnesota is going to be gunning for that number 1 offensive line spot. There's been a lot of fans that I've been talking to in my personal life, from Lions fans to Eagles fans to Steelers fans to Buffalo fans. There is a lot of people that are starting to get scared of Minnesota. When was the last time that we have seen this kind of buzz around the Vikings where teams of contenders are scared of us for once? This is insane. Or fans of contenders, I should say. But these teams, they're going to start not taking Minnesota lightly. They're going to start game planning heavy. And that's where it's going to be on Brian Flores to really be able to switch things up with that fixed up defensive line, and where Minnesota is going to have a lot of opportunities to surprise people with this fortified offensive line. We're no longer the Swiss cheese offensive line like the Green Bay Packers are over there in Wisconsin. We have now got a concrete offensive line if they can stay fully healthy. But what do you guys think about it, all of this down in the comments below? Let us know. But that's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. I've been your host, Griffen. Take care.